How often do you level up your PCs? Too often. It's ruining your campaign and you gotta stop it right now. The speed of leveling up in D&D has actually been all over the place. In the original 1974 edition of the game, the XP rules were a little vague and open to interpretation. But even under the most conservative interpretations, TSR designers were shocked to discover that D&D-obsessed players were leveling up their characters to 15th, 20th, 30th, or even 50th level. They considered this sort of power gaming to be completely unacceptable. So the XP rules were radically overhauled in the very first D&D supplement, reducing how much XP the PCs were getting to just 1% of what they were previously earning, depending on exactly how a group had been interpreting the original rules. This still didn't slow everyone down, so TSR's designers took the novel approach of chiding and even outright insulting people for their ridiculous characters. This notably reached a climax when they published a book full of gods and goddesses. And we're starting up Thor, and we think you'll all feel pretty silly when you realize that your absurdly overpowered characters can just kill a god. So the players, of course, started killing gods. And this back and forth would continue for years. But there was more to it than that. The rules of the game were all over the place, and it was basically impossible to play AD&D without house ruling it. And XP was no exception. Some DMs, for example, would drop XP for treasure because it didn't make sense to them. That's a topic for another day, though. Hit the subscribe button if you don't want to miss it. But other GMs would use optional rules to reward XP for non-combat achievements, or they wouldn't adjust XP awards based on PC level. Another common casualty of house rules were the training rules, which required PCs to find a trainer of the appropriate level before they could level up. And if the PCs earned a lot of XP in a single session, should it cap out, or should they be allowed to gain multiple levels all at once? Depending on which combination of rules a DM was using, the speed of leveling could vary radically from one table to the next, with some characters burning through levels, while other players could go months or even years between levels. And of course, everyone was doing it wrong. Anyone leveling up faster than you was a reckless munchkin, but any DM with a slower XP rate hated their players, and their campaign sucked. D&D 3rd edition tried to clean the slate, clear the air, and reset expectations. The designers had market research showing that the average D&D campaign only lasted for 1 year. So if you wanted players to actually experience high-level play, their XP awards needed to be paced so that they could hit 20th level after about 30 to 50 sessions. And if you do the math, that means the PC should obviously be leveling up every 1 or 2 sessions. So that's how they paced leveling in D&D 3rd edition. And that understanding of leveling has remained pretty consistent through D&D 4th edition and into 5th edition today. The problem is that it's wrong. I mean, it's not wrong if your goal is to get to 20th level in 30-ish sessions. But is that your goal? Or is your goal to have fun, high-quality gaming sessions? Now, so far we've been talking about D&D, but this advice really applies to any RPG where the PCs power up in big chunks, games like Starfinder or Draw Steel. It won't really be useful, of course, in systems like Night's Black Agents or Call of Cthulhu, where you advance a few skill points at a time. On the other hand, I think you'll still find it useful in systems with incremental but meaningful chunks, like the Cypher system or 13th Age. Because here's the deal. Every time you hit a new level, there are 3 things that are going to happen. First, you're going to be figuring out what all of your new abilities are and what they do. Second, you're going to start experimenting with all your new stuff. What's the best loadout of spells to prepare now? Now that you have Danger Sense, should your position in the marching order change? Stuff like that. And this importantly includes learning how to coordinate with the other PCs and their new abilities too. Third, through experimentation, you're going to master your new abilities. And once that happens, there will ideally be a period in which you get to enjoy that mastery. These are the moments when the game feels really satisfying because everything is just clicking. As everyone at the table settles into the new groove, your speed of play will also pick up. You'll be playing with confidence. There'll be fewer rules lookups. Decisions will be fast and furious. And then, of course, at some point, you'll level up again, and you'll have this blast of cool new abilities that will make everything feel fresh and exciting again. You'll be able to solve problems and tackle challenges that were out of your reach, and the cycle will start over again. Here's the trick, though. If you think about those 3 phases, learning, experimenting, mastering, how long does each one take? I'm going to argue that for every phase, you need at least 1 session. At each step, you need to take in the lessons of actual play, figure out how you want to apply those lessons, and then actually apply them in play. In practice, my experience is that you You really want multiple sessions per phase. The entire idea of experimenting, for example, pretty strongly implies that not every experiment is going to work out. Ideally, you'll be iterating and working out the kinks. So, what happens when the PCs gain a new level every single session? Well, they get stuck in first gear. It's just a constant deluge of new stuff. Learning how their character works becomes their full-time job. It's like trying to learn how to dance while standing under a waterfall. They never really figure out how all this new stuff works. They never integrate it. They never get on top of it. They never even get close to enjoying the rewards of mastery. Now, if you've never played at a table that achieves this kind of mastery, then you may not even know what you're missing out on. But if you'd like to give your players the breathing space to find out what they're truly capable of, then you do have a few options. First, obviously, you can just slow things down. Instead of leveling up every session, have the PCs level up every 4 or 5 sessions instead. If you're using some kind of milestone leveling, you can just do this. If you're awarding XP, it will mean adjusting how much XP is awarded. Personally, for example, I've been having XP awards in D&D 3rd edition and 5th edition for about 20 years now, and it works pretty well for me and my groups. Now, either way though, you can also vary this pace. For example, you might want to level up faster at 1st level, but then slow it down as you hit 5th level. Now, of course, some players won't like taking long breaks like this between one character advancement and the next. They enjoy the dopamine hit. They like being rewarded for their efforts, or they just like tinkering with the mechanics. Now, to help them get what they want, you can break character advancement up into smaller parts. Monty Cook's Numenera, for example, has characters advanced by tier. Each tier has 4 advancements: improving effort, improving an ability pool, increasing edge, or becoming trained in a new skill. Each time your character advances, you can take one of these 4 advancements until you've taken all 4, at which point you level up to a new tier, unlocking additional abilities and resetting the advancements. You can do something pretty similar in D&D with a simple hack. On your first advancement, gain your next level of hit points. On your second advancement, gain your class's bonus feature for the next level, and on your third advancement, gain everything else and increase your level. You'll need to tweak the specifics for your game of choice, but while this allows you to advance more frequently, you're also acquiring abilities more gradually, and at a pace where you can still learn, experiment, and master. Your final option, if neither of those work for you, is to split the group's leveling. In old-school D&D, different character classes required different amounts of XP to level up. There were a bunch of reasons for this, but one practical effect was that different characters would level up at different times. So in one session, the wizard and the thief might level up together, and then the fighter in the next session, and then the cleric in the session after that. You can easily do the same thing with milestone leveling. Instead of having all 5 PCs level up every 5 sessions, have one PC, and one PC only, level up in every session. If you do this, I do recommend letting the players decide who gets to level up each time. It's also a good idea to encourage them to shuffle the orders, that no one is stuck leveling up last every time. You'll probably also want to make sure that everyone gets a chance to level up once before a PC gets to level up a second time, but you may be surprised to find that some groups will actually want to give someone an extra boost, either because it makes dramatic sense, because they did something cool and deserve it, or because the whole group would benefit from Susan getting a 3rd level spell. It's up to you whether to allow it, but it's usually just fine to let them do it if that's what the whole group wants. Now, this technique, in fact, tends to work best with groups that are focused on the group's accomplishments, rather than just thinking about their own character sheets.
I know Kung Fu. Show me.
These groups are getting the vicarious thrill and celebration of someone leveling up every session, or every couple of sessions, but they are individually getting plenty of time to master their characters as they slowly accumulate abilities over time. Either way, adding new suites of abilities one character at a time makes it a lot easier for the group as a whole to learn those abilities and experiment with them. It's a lot easier for me to think about how I can help Chris set up his new shadow flanking ability if I'm not simultaneously trying to learn and master all of my new abilities too. This is how you take chaos and turn it into a well-oiled machine. Now, so far we've just been talking about how fast your group levels up at the table, the time you experience as players. But there's a whole nother side to this. How much time passes for your characters in the game world? It can be surprisingly easy to start as 1st level heroes, end the campaign as 20th level demigods, and then look back to discover that the whole journey only took like 3 weeks for your character. And does that really make sense? How can an apprentice who can barely rub 2 cantrips together become a greater arcanist than Merlin in less than a month? And this can be exacerbated by fast leveling, but it's really caused by a hyper-compression of unending action. Real people need to eat and sleep and study and relax and buy groceries and just generally live their lives. RPG characters generally don't. And so we often just skip past all that stuff and just keep driving to the next action beat. And if you're okay with that, no problem. But if you'd like to breathe a little more air into your characters' lives, then you need to figure out how to decompress the action. Partly that's about designing adventures where characters can take a breather. I mean, if the world is going to end in a month, or the Blitzkrieg is invading France right now, then the PCs have little choice but to keep going at maximum speed. But even when the action can be decompressed, you'll likely still need to push the players into letting time pass. Now, broadly speaking, this means having some sort of downtime built into your campaign structure. Old school D&D did that by enforcing training time. Earning XP wasn't enough. Once you'd earned enough XP, you still needed to spend time in character training your skills up before you could level up. In Ars Magica, a game where you play as wizards running a covenant, the campaign is organized into seasons. During each season, you can either go on an adventure or undertake other activities like research or magic item creation. But you can go on no more than one adventure per season, naturally enforcing the passage of time. As long as it's not fighting your narrative, you can similarly force or encourage meaningful downtime per level, per adventure, or both, regardless of what game you're running. If you've got a narrative structure without any time pressure, then you're good to go. For example, it doesn't matter how long it takes for Bilbo and the dwarves to reach the Lonely Mountain, Smaug isn't going anywhere. Now, if you've got more bad guys, though, a useful way to find narrative structures that work with the passage of time is to make sure the PCs and the bad guys are playing by the same rules. Think of it like this. The PCs need time to rest, recuperate, gather their strength, and generally get ready to do the next thing they want to do. Broadly speaking, the same thing should be true for the bad guys. While the PCs are resting in Rivendell, Sauron can't just blitzkrieg Minas Tirith the next day. He needs time to gather his forces. Blades in the Dark builds this right into the game, with downtime after every score and factions limited to a single action during each downtime, with downtime being required because it's how the PCs can recover from injuries and stress they've taken during their jobs. As a result, it's not really a bad rule of thumb to say that the bad guys can do one thing at the same time that the PCs are doing one thing, even if you're running a game without a formal downtime procedure. A full discussion of downtime and all the awesome stuff you can do with it, though, would take a full video in its own right. So hit the subscribe button and keep an eye out for that. Good gaming. This is Justin Alexander, and I'll see you at the table.